Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's quite a heavy red week this week for me. Against the grain, very much so. I believe the S&P and Nasdaq are slightly up, although that seems to be partly just due to big tech and sort of the Magnificent Seven, as they call them. I did look and see the equal weighted S&P even, so exactly the same stocks, but just the same weighting in each of them rather than market cap weighted is, I believe, down for the week and actually down for the year. So it really does show you how much your sort of Googles and Apples and everything are sort of holding the market up and well, outperforming the rest basically. But yes, my sort of gold and silver and a bit of Cleanspark has sort of dropped me down this week. The rest has sort of actually done quite well. Sort of semiconductors having a really good end to the week. TSMC and Broadcom and people like that. Broadcom at all-time highs now. So yeah, let's have a look at some other stuff. So, Coeur Mining released their third quarter results. This is one of my biggest gold and silver position, and it's sort of taken rather a hit this week. That's been sort of quite a big contributor to this week's loss. I didn't say I'm actually, so I'm down about 8,000, just over sort of between 4 and 5%, and this has sort of contributed quite a bit. But yeah, nothing sort of too bad from what I can see. The big expansion that they've been doing, the Rochester mine, is now complete. So costs will come down, and production up, and you should start to see a reasonable net profit with sort of gold and silver prices even where they are, and any sort of increase will be sort of very bullish. I don't think people sort of look into the expansions that much and sort of realise that they're not making a loss at the moment, even with today's gold and silver prices. It's because they are sort of spending a fortune and expanding. And during the month just of October, they recovered 537,000 ounces of silver and 8,000 ounces of gold, which is rather a big silver total. If it's that sort of production, maybe a little more, that should be very, very nice. They've given sort of low end guidance still at 304,000 ounces of gold and 10 million ounces of silver. I'm quite happy with that sort of low end estimate, to be honest. If they exceed that up to sort of the mid or top end, then all the better. But I do see this as one of the better value miners at the moment. Can't really see anyone better. So just looking at their numbers, so yeah, it's still a net income, net loss, slightly down from last quarter. They do give a very nice sort of 5 quarter in a row breakdown, so you can see against last quarter and the quarter last year, but also sort of every quarter. I do like this breakdown. Yeah, all the figures are sort of not ideal, but they're sort of all affected by the expansion. 112 million in capex for this quarter. 85 last quarter, 74 previous quarter. So it's affecting every quarter basically, and it's now largely complete. So this could come down to sort of 40 million, 30 million, and that will all translate to income, which is good. So 78,000 ounces of gold, very good for a quarter, and 2.3 million ounces of silver, and this should increase quite a bit going forward. And costs as well. This does vary, obviously, quarter to quarter, but yeah, costs per gold ounce, $1,273, which is very good. That's sort of pretty much the lows they've been at for the last year, especially with inflation high. So that's very good. The grade sort of slightly improving to sort of help that, but silver not quite so good. $17.85 with sort of silver price at $22 or so. That's probably a loss after overheads and everything, but yeah, with their expansion, kind of hoping that will reduce. So all looking good to me. And I always have a quick look at the balance sheet. Doesn't matter who it is, you've got to stay solvent, of course. So yeah, cash is down slightly from December, down to 53 million, but nothing sort of too much to worry about. Not a lot of current debt, 22 million down from 24. Long-term debt come sort of ever so slightly down, but it's 490 million. So do need this sort of ramp up and reduction in costs, possibly hoping they might sort of pay down a little bit of debt. So overall, the numbers look sort of fairly rough on the face of it, but if you dig in, I think there is sort of very promising future over the next sort of year or two, and hopefully, I'm kind of hoping that people have sort of missed that, and this sort of falls off a lot of screeners and things like that because they're making a loss even at today's gold prices, which are pretty high. And yeah, maybe this sort of sudden shock in profit over the next couple of years should sort of increase their value drastically. So we'll see. So this was a nice surprise. Taiwan Semiconductor's monthly revenue was kind of expecting sort of just the same as previous months, 10-15% down on last year's revenue, and sort of bullish for the future, but they've come out with a blowout, 243 billion Taiwan dollars for October, 15.7% up on last year. So it's the first positive since the beginning of the year, basically, year on year. And yeah, don't really know where this is coming from. Don't know whether it's a one-off or could be sort of one particular company ramping up, Apple or Nvidia, the AI chips maybe, sort of a huge ramp of AI chips, or whether it's just across the board, could be a bit of Qualcomm, a bit of Broadcom, a bit of AMD. But yeah, who knows? AMD sort of bullish and saying they've got a new AI chip selling reasonably well, so whether that's them. I do always like, as I say, checking this because we're now getting, and I've just had sort of some of the Q3 results for a lot of the semiconductor companies, but that goes up to the end of September. Even, I believe, Nvidia's isn't even out yet, and when that comes out, it will be till the end of September. So to be getting October's numbers and just sort of seeing where we are is kind of a bit of alpha, I always say. This is sort of giving you a little bit of a guide. Maybe we'll see November. If it's the same, then yeah, maybe Q3 is sort of going to be hugely bullish. And you have seen, whether it was because of this, I couldn't see any other sort of particular reason, but the whole semiconductor industry sort of seemed to rocket up on yesterday, on Friday. So yeah, whether people have spotted this and thought, well, they all must be doing well, that's not necessarily the case. As I say, it could be just like Nvidia, for example, but we'll see. So, Fortuna Silver Mines. This is another one of mine, a smaller position than Equinox and Coeur Mining, but does sort of give a good indication of where potentially Equinox and Coeur Mining could be in the not so distant future. So they've had a great deal of costs spent on their Segala mine, and this was the first quarter with that in full production, and it really does sort of bear out in the numbers. So you've seen revenue increase quite a lot, and operating income, yeah, basically all of these figures are sort of huge, monstrous three-digit figures up on last year. So the third quarter 2022 was a small loss of 3.7 million, and this quarter was 27 million in profit. So yeah, 843% up. Obviously that's not really anything to take note of. The 9 months, for example, even up 69%, so that's very nice. Starting to see sort of earnings per share ramping up, and you sort of take 4 quarters of that if you like. Obviously you can't, it's only just a very rough number, but that'd be about sort of 36 cents, so less than a 10 PE, which is pretty good, and it'll probably start to come up on people's value screeners and, as a decent miner. So very nice. And all-in sustaining cost is sort of everyone's favourite metric for miners, and that's come down from $1,431, which wasn't too bad considering sort of gold at 1,900 plus. A lot of the other miners are at sort of $1,600. But with the new mine, that's down to $1,312 overall. And you can sort of dig into the actual mine, why that is causing it, because a lot of these mines, the Lindero mine in Argentina, that is sort of largely a gold mine, and that's $1,611, so that's a little bit higher. The Burkina Faso one is 1,211, not too bad. And then Segala, $788, all in sustaining cost. So whether that's, we'll see how the sort of following quarters go, but that's incredible, really. That's $1,200 profit. After mining cost, you've still got overheads and sort of a few other costs to go on top of that. But, for the mine itself, $1,200 an ounce, which is rather nice, and 35,000 ounces, or 31,500 ounces produced. So, yes, very, very good. They don't exactly make their balance sheet too obvious as well, but they've got 251 million in total debt and 117 million in cash and cash equivalents. So a little bit of a better position than Coeur Mining and Equinox, I believe, and sort of now being incredibly profitable. Pretty happy with that sort of balance sheet. So going forward, I would have thought some fairly big dividends. So yeah, that's another sort of thing that will probably put them on the radar for a lot of people. So yeah, we'll see sort of what comes in the next few quarters, if sort of people are noticing it, and maybe you get a large announcement of a big dividend, and people will suddenly take notice. Then Hymax Technologies, one that I am sort of going pretty hard into at the moment, especially on the options side, because it just seems sort of incredibly bullish, and they sort of come down to the low $5 earlier, sort of in the last month or so, and I was sort of buying quite heavily, and it's risen up to about 578, partly sort of off the results from the looks of it. They sort of beat their revenues and EPS, although it was sort of very, very low expected. Now still expecting Q4 revenue to decline 5 to 11%, somewhere around there. Gross margin of 30%, but profitable, sort of coming back to profitable, with inventory coming down and sort of one-off costs hopefully behind them. So between 9 and 13 cents. So, sort of said potentially this going forward, sort of 4 quarters at 10 cents, for example, it'd be about 12 price to earn, or sort of, 14 price to earnings, and sort of I would be expecting this to be increasing over the next sort of few quarters. So yeah, potentially back to sort of 10 PE or below. And with sort of automotive demand, they're saying automotive is set to be the biggest sector, or sort of already is the biggest sector, but it's a heavily growing sector as well. So with potentially other sectors stagnating, that could be sort of a huge driver, really. And obviously the VR market and sort of various other growth areas in the future. But automotive is the one for now. So an operating income for the Q3 of $11 million, not too bad. Net profit actually of $11.2 million after sort of various adjustments and interest, especially. They've got a bit of debt, which I would rather they didn't have. But yeah, not looking too bad. Revenues are quite a bit down from on the 9 months. That's sort of after a very positive sort of 2021 and 2022, but yeah, that's kind of expected. Cash down a bit as Cash down a little bit as well. So cash down quite a bit as well, 147 million, down from 211 million last quarter. Current debt as well, up to 453 million. And, well, long-term debt only at 36. So kind of concerned. I'm guessing they're going to have to refinance this at sort of longer-term debt, or maybe they just keep it as sort of rolling short-term debt and see if interest rates come down a little bit. But yeah, if they have to sort of refinance this at really high rates, that would be a little bit unfortunate. So overall, things are looking up and sort of looking positive for my potential options bets. Looking forward to sort of end of 2025, really. If next year sort of turns out to be a good year with, as they saying, inventory down and automotive sales up, would expect a reasonably good 2024, and then through sort of 2025, if they're doing well, people could be sort of projecting big numbers, and you could get a reasonable share price, and then my options hopefully should pay out rather handsomely. So we'll see. That's always the gamble, but yeah, kind of hopeful. So news-wise, there wasn't a lot of news. It was fairly quiet this week. Halifax House Price Index does agree with the nationwide one. I thought that might have been a bit of an anomaly, but 1.1% up in October. I did think that was a little bit strange. Thought sort of interest rates would have been really biting by now, but yeah, people are still well happy. Mortgage rate up to 8%. That's a new high. So people don't care. They want to buy, which is promising for the UK, I suppose, or they're just setting themselves up for a huge crash. Jobs numbers for the US sort of ticking up slightly again, continuing unemployment claims at sort of 1.8 million now. Sort of initial slightly up as well, but sort of payrolls numbers weren't particularly good last month. So I don't know whether the Fed sort of see this as, a necessary break in the back of the US labour market. I don't know how long they want to sort of take that, really. UK GDP as well, sort of provisional figures, but slightly better than expected. 0% for Q3 was better than expected and sort of cheered as a positive. But yeah, not ideal. And that was it for the news. So portfolio-wise, cash is sort of quite a bit down. This is the cash in the Interactive Brokers account, actually. Sort of looking to add to that shortly with my Weeble extra little money that I've made. So that'll be going into Interactive Brokers, most likely. Still the most sort of lucrative idea I can think of at the moment. But yeah, a lot of the invest side was actually up this week, as I say. Sort of semiconductor side doing really well. Himax, Broadcom, and TSMC. Stellantis sort of just continuing to do its thing. Very nice. Emerging markets ETF has come back up as well, sort of pretty much in profit. So that's quite nice. I'm still thinking of using that potentially in the future, but not entirely sure what for. But I do see it as a sort of nice little potential amount of cash to do something with. And then on the ISA side, I did sell some of my money market position, so quite a bit of that actually. Some earlier in the week and bought some Coeur mining, and then some yesterday and bought some more Coeur mining and some Cleanspark. Sort of kind of awful timing for Cleanspark. I think I paid about $370 and it was sort of $350 earlier in the day, but yeah, you can't have everything. And yeah, the REIT's sort of not doing a huge amount this week, but yeah, the gold and silver miners obviously sort of causing a huge knock for me. Coeur mining, I think, was sort of 250 last week, and has sort of been around the 250 range, and has sort of come right down to 211. So that's rather a knock. Equinox Gold actually not dropping a huge amount. Seems to be sort of performing much better. Cleanspark, 374. That was sort of 450, I believe, last week. Even with Bitcoin rocketing and sort of the whole crypto industry rocketing, really. So yeah, not quite sure what's going on there, whether they're doing sort of dilution or people are just not happy with something. I see the other miners are sort of doing okay, Riot and some of the others. So yeah, we'll see. I'm sort of kind of looking to buy potentially some options. I kind of wish they had end of 2025 $10 options. They've only got $7.50 bets. I sort of want to bet that it's over $10 really, because I'm sort of very bullish, and they would be a lot cheaper. But yeah, they don't seem to do those. IG accounts barely changed, sort of Pan American Silver down a bit and Cleanspark down a bit, both with sort of similar to the others. And then the interactive brokers side looks awful. The Baidu and Alibaba sort of barely moved, but the options taken a huge hit. So this is, I think, about 400 £400 down, but I've added about £1,000. So that's not gone too well. But yeah, I'm carrying on buying. It's sort of an area that I see, I'm not betting on sort of week to week. I'm betting on basically the next 2 years. So I've got plenty of time. And at the moment, I've got more money to add. So lower prices aren't necessarily a bad thing, as long as they don't go bust, which it doesn't seem like that's happening anytime soon. So that's portfolio for the week. Let me know how you guys are getting on. Presumably a lot of you are up as opposed to me. Yeah, what are you guys buying? And like and subscribe. See you soon.